Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy, we have a new friend and an old friend joining us today.
I see that.
Adrian Farron, as she has been known to a lot of people here in Moore County, and who has been a past guest on the show, is now has moved from Moore County to the Knoxville, Tennessee area, and Adrian White is her name.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
I'm not gonna, and we had lots of interest and hits on the show that you did with us on the renovation of 120 North Valley Road.
Oh, yeah.
And many views.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I don't know if
Good.
you've gone viral and you don't even know it.
Oh, my goodness. Well, your shows are always a good time.
Well, she's in town visiting family, and she was nice enough to come and join us. And our guest for the hour is the Reverend Wendell F. Bo Collins III, but he goes by Bo.
That's right. That's what Mama calls me.
That's right. And Dorothy, we're going to welcome Bo and his family into Moore County. They moved here about a month ago, and
new people.
from Illinois.
Nice.
And there's a story behind it.
There always is.
Well, we were fortunate to meet the family, helping them get placed in a home. He has 4 very high-spirited children. I think between the ages of 1 and 7.
That's right. That's right. They are very high-spirited. That's the very diplomatic way of saying they are savage, high-energy children. I have a 7-year-old boy, a 5-year-old boy, a 4-year-old boy, and a 1-year-old little princess daughter. She's our caboose.
She could run a third world country.
Absolutely. Well, she is basically doing that right now out of our kitchen. Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
She looks around the room and she just scans a room and she decides to make some decisions about how she feels.
She commands her brubras to do her bidding. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, at first,
that's right.
I had the privilege of meeting Katie, your wife, first before I got a chance to meet you.
That's how it should be.
And so tell us, you have come here from Illinois?
Mm-hmm. From Chicagoland, that's right.
How long were you in Chicago?
Just under 5.5 years. Yeah, it was a fantastic time. I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama.
You are?
I am, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Born in Louisiana, but my dad transitioned over with the phone company to Birmingham when I was about 3 years old. And the great state of Alabama, the 205 area code, that's basically what I call
I don't hear an accent in it.
If I'm outside cutting the grass, it'll come out a little bit or yes ma'am, no ma'am kind of thing. It'll come out eventually. And plus, I'm still recalibrating from living amongst all the Dutch up in Chicagoland, so it can come out a little bit more.
So most of your family started in Illinois, and now you've brought them all here to Southern Pines.
Well, kind of. So my story as a pastor, it's taken me a little bit. So I graduated a little bit around the country. I graduated seminary a little bit over a decade ago. I did my seminary work at Covenant Seminary, which is in St. Louis, Missouri. My wife and I were married when I was pastoring at a church in Memphis, Tennessee, and that's where my first son was born. We were there for almost 4 years. It was an incredible time. I transitioned to pastor at a church in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. And so my second son was actually born out there. He's a native New Mexican, and New Mexico has a very special place in my heart. We can get into that a little later. We were only there for a very short time, however, because we learned about this opportunity that I just came from in northern Chicagoland. A seminary professor who I had in Missouri was a ruling elder. That's part of our nomenclature up at this church, and he and I, we exchanged some phone calls and discussed it. And anyways, they called me to be their pastor, and I was there for almost 5.5 years, where my younger 2 children were born. So they consider, they're Cubs fans at heart. They consider Chicago their home, and so here we are, in North Carolina, being reintegrated into everything Southern, all the humidity, the slower pace of life. It's been real sweet to bring my kids back home.
When you went to college, did you know that did you have a calling? Was this something that you were planning, or was this something that evolved?
Wow. My college experience had very little to do with religion, and certainly very little to do with becoming a pastor. When I went into college, I studied at school in Birmingham. I didn't care at all about the academy, about learning. I just knew you had to go to college to get a job, and so while I was attending my freshman year in college, I was playing rock and roll in a local band, and we were pretty good.
Huh.
And that band ended up signing a record deal, and so I actually dropped out of college, much to my mama's
dismay.
Among other things.
My mother should meet your mother.
Yeah, that's right. And we toured around. We got a chance to tour around the country.
Uh-huh.
I like to think of it as we lived like pirates. We just went from city to city trying not to get arrested. And I wasn't, super crazy, but we had our fair share of fun. And long story short, as I was doing the rock and roll thing, suddenly the band removed me. I was kicked out of the band. And that was kind of my career path and really my identity. And what ended up happening was, as I was kind of back home in Birmingham licking my wounds, I was at a coffee shop, and this man who I didn't know, he could kind of see that I was very heavy, and he approached me and he just asked if he could buy me lunch, and he did, and I ended up verbal vomiting at this guy for about 4 hours, just about all the stuff that was going on, and it turns out he was a Presbyterian pastor, which I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I grew up in the Baptist church, and I didn't really know much outside of that. Huh. And he started to talk about the way that God pursues people, not in a way that's really angry, or not in a way that's keeping, a list of rules, but in a way that's loving and in a way that's beautiful. And I had grown up in the church, but I had never really heard with my ears and with my heart that story. And so, anyways, this pastor, he ended up kind of mentoring me. He and his wife adopted me emotionally and spiritually, and so they invited me to start attending their church. And anyways, I ended up getting back into school and kind of informally interning at this church for several years while I graduated. And once I did graduate from school, I had an English degree, I had a philosophy minor, and so the only thing that's good for is going into grad school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and the church allowed me some opportunities to teach Bible studies, especially college men, and I loved it. I loved talking about the Bible. I loved talking about spirituality with young men, probably because I had experienced a lot of the things that they had experienced, and I really cared for them, both abstractly and personally. And that church encouraged me to consider pastoral ministry, and so for about a year I prayed about it. And externally I felt called, but internally I wanted to wait and be certain, because being a pastor is a heavy, weighty responsibility. You don't just want to run into that. But eventually I felt a sense of, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so I transitioned, and I mentioned this earlier, to St. Louis, Missouri, where I studied at Covenant Seminary, and here we are, decade so later.
Just listening to you speak, as your resume per se, it sounds like you're 50 or 60 years old, but you're not.
I know. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
My goodness.
The listeners can't tell, but he's got this baby face. There's not a mark or a line on it, and he's got all this experience in his life.
I turned 40 this year. Turned 40 in November.
Okay. So there was a shift in your life, in your career, because you started out on one path and you've completely wound up on another path. Obviously, very dedicated to that path. You've moved around in the last 10 years a lot. Your family, and tell us about your relationship with Moore County. How it came to be that you decided to leave Illinois and come here, and why here?
Absolutely. I'm really fascinated by Moore County. We were having a conversation, Adrian and I, just before we came on.
You two could have a show, by the way, without me even being here.
I'm waiting for her to jump in. Moore County, a word that there's a lady I work with, her name's Charla. She used this phrase to describe Moore County. I think it's really accurate from my initial observations. It's a micropolitan.
Right.
there are a lot of people, whether they're military or retiring, who are not from here. They're imports, and they bring with them their experience and their ideas about all kinds of things. But they're also they're well trained. They're ambitious, and they're saturated in this place where they have a vision of the world that they think would be most special, and they actually want to make that vision. They actually want to see that vision manifest in front of them. And in a lot of respects, there was a similar vibe or energy in Chicagoland. So I find this to be kind of fascinating. I thought I was coming home back to the South and to the kind of sleepy spot between two big metro areas, but
Right.
there's something that rhymes with where I've been, and that was very attractive as I was getting to know not just the community but the church community that I serve. We represent kind of the broad swath of folks, Whispering Pines, Aberdeen, Southern Pines, and Pinehurst. Lots of interests, but lots of really interesting people who are not what you would expect from a kind of a small, sleepy southern town.
I've been a resident of Moore County for this is my 24th year. Adrian, I think you are actually
My family
a few.
came in 1988,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
I
wow.
didn't move here full time till 97.
Yeah.
So the landscape here, her perspective would be very valuable, and mine is that there are many, many churches in Moore County,
Yes.
some denominational, some non-denominational.
Yes.
And growing up in the Northeast and being a member of the Greek Orthodox Church, I came from traditional roots where when you grew up in a church, that was a church you were a member of your entire life.
Yeah.
And our parents and our parents' parents.
I grew up in a Lutheran church in Buffalo, New York, that my great-greats, whoever they were, I've actually got on Ancestry.com, and I've seen the paperwork where we've been attending that Lutheran church since the 1860s.
Oh, wow.
And that was my church, and it's where my oldest daughter was baptized. And you don't change churches.
Right.
That's not a thing.
No.
But here, it is a thing.
Yeah.
I've seen with the demographic shift, so many young families coming in. I mean, your children are going to have more. You're going to have more children at your house in the next 2 years, right? There's so many young kids here and young families. But I've seen a lot of mobility amongst churches, and I don't know if it's the younger than the millennial generation, but their indoctrination into religion seems different than my generation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so many ways we could go with that. I would echo that as somebody who, provides religious services, as I do my air quotes. That's a real felt thing from the pastoral side of things as well. There are questions that people are asking themselves about kind of religion in general, but I think the institutional church more broadly, more specifically, that I think resonate much with what you're saying. I think the main question that gets people through the front door of a church like mine right now is, what can this church provide me? Whether it's a sense of emotional or maybe supernatural peace, maybe it's a sense of community. They're starting with, what's happening between my ears and how does that travel 18 inches down to my heart? And in some ways, that's a really good focal point for kind of where we are as a culture right now in America. We're a very prosperous culture, and that's a great blessing from the Lord. And in the same breath, with that prosperity, it takes a lot to punch through the distractions, the ways in which we surround ourselves with all kinds of things. And sometimes those types of traumas that really do reveal the fact that we have a soul. We have something that's bigger than just our bank accounts or our homes or our career paths. Those require tenderness. And one of the things that I love about Redeemer Church, we are aspiring to be a safe church and a trustworthy church for people, whether you are, 4 generations of Presbyterianism back to your great-great-granddaddy, somebody who's grown up in a church, or whether you're somebody who's just curious about exploring, what does it mean to act and to talk and to think like there is a God. Anywhere in between, we want to be a place where folks can come in, they can have those conversations, but not just with themselves or with a religious practitioner, but with other human beings who they'll see in their community and be able to experience the institutionalism of the church more than just kind of trying to figure out what's going on between their own ears. That's really important for us as a worshiping community.
So the Redeemer Church is Presbyterian based.
We are part of the Presbyterian Church in America. It's a conservative, confessional Presbyterian church, if that means anything to the folks who are listening. They're all kind of flavors of Protestant churches. We are from the Reformed tribe or the confessional tribe. It's something that, it's a heritage that we love to talk about, but it's not something that we lean with. If you're not a Presbyterian and you come to Redeemer, you're still going to feel, we hope at least, pretty comfortable, and you'll understand the words and the things that we're doing. But we do proudly embrace all that comes with kind of our Scottish and English heritage as Presbyterians.
Adrian, you were saying before that you moved to Knoxville, and you've been there how long now?
Almost 2 years.
And having a hard time finding a church?
Yes.
How does that, now, I don't understand how it's hard to find a church if you were raised in a church.
Yeah.
What does finding a church mean?
So I was raised in the Lutheran church, and anybody who's listening that is familiar with Lutherans knows that that's robes and candles, and it is recitation. It's a lot of repetition from Sunday to Sunday. Very Catholic in its execution.
Right.
And it was something you did because that's what you were supposed to do. You went to church on Sunday because that's where Grandma expected to see you. And you didn't question it. You just did it. And it wasn't really a part of Monday through Saturday. It was what you did on Sunday.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got older that I started to wonder, well, why am I doing this on Sunday? Is this real? And if it's real, then why am I only doing it on Sunday? Is it not real the other 6 days of the week? And that brought me out of the Lutheran church down south into what turned out to be Baptist church. I don't really consider myself Baptist, but that group of folks just seemed to fit me really well.
Okay, I need to ask, what is the litmus test you apply in picking a church?
It ends up being a group of people that you spend a lot of time with. It ends up being the people that you are going to not only see on Sunday morning, but you're going to maybe do a small group Bible study with. Your kids are going to play with their kids. You're going to end up at potlucks and, barbecues and church outings. And you don't want to just walk into any group of people. I mean, I suppose some people can. Maybe I'm just not one of those people that I need to feel like, are these people that I want to make a part of my overall life? And not just the folks I see on Sunday.
So the selection is more social based than it is faith based?
It can be. Once you establish that the church has a belief system that you also agree with and that you also adhere to, then it really just becomes about the people.
I like the way you're listening to her. What are you thinking?
Everything that Adrian just said resonates with so many people who I talk with as they are trying to explore what it means for them and their families to join in with a religious community, whether it's Redeemer Church or any religious community. They're trying to think through, not only is this a place where I can be seen, is this a place where I will feel safe? Because when you talk about a religious experience, that's one of the more intimate things that you can speak about. The way I like to talk about it with my people is a good church, a place where you feel like you belong. It's a place where you'll let people smell your spiritual bad breath. They know what's really going on.
I don't think I've ever heard those words put together that way before, ever.
And you kind of know it when you feel it, right? You know there's a sense in which the people who are here, I may not agree with everything that's going on. Maybe we're in a different age and stage in our lives, kids, no kids. Maybe we're different politically. Maybe we're different socioeconomically. But there's something about the joy of being gathered around the worship of Christ Jesus that really resonates with people, and they can sense it existentially. There's a resonance to it. What I'm really intrigued by is the kind of twin tensions that, and this is exactly what we felt in Chicagoland as well, Adrian, the twin tensions that people are experiencing. On the one hand, they want something that's subjective, where they want to feel a thing, whatever that is. It's ethereal, and it's kind of, you know it when you see it or you feel it, right? But they also want an institution that's going to, whether it's the doctrine or the dogma, whether it's leadership that you can follow or be inspired by. They want both of those things together, and trying to bring those two streams together in the modern busy person's mind and in their heart is quite the challenge. What I try to do as yes, I'm a Presbyterian pastor, but more broadly as a Christian pastor, is I try to focus people on the three ways in which we experience the grace of God in our lives, like the three specific, and this is something that all Christian traditions kind of agree on, that through prayer, we can appreciate being God's people, and we can feel the power of it through the sacraments, through our baptism, and through communion. Our strength, or our faith, is nourished and strengthened, but also through the ministry of the Word, whether it's preaching or whether it's personal study of God's Word. We understand not just who He is, but the promises that He's made and how those come into our lives. Again, not just subjectively, but objectively as the people of God. So a church that highlights those kinds of things, in our world we call those the means of grace, or the ways in which we experience, like the heavenly sanctioned ways in which we experience God's grace. A church that does that, I think the people who are there, they sense that's a really important thing. And if a church is focusing on that, they're going to be successful, Lord willing, in their task to help serve people spiritually. And that's what we try to do at Redeemer Church. And I hope you could find a church that does that in Knoxville. There's a couple of good P.C.A. churches over there.
Well, there's a lot of good people, so it's not a social club, but you want to when you're going to invest your time and invest what you have to offer with this place, you're going to give them your time, your talent. You're going to lend them your ear on a regular basis. You want to feel like they know what they're talking about as well. And I think the longer you're a Christian, sometimes the harder it is to find if you're starting over again, like we are in later years, and trying to find a place to start over where we already have established what a lot of our knowledge. So we're trying to find somebody who can get us beyond that.
See that I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, and a lot of churches don't go beyond. A lot of churches stay in the ABCs, the very basic things, and then there's nothing for you after that.
And churches right now, could I jump in on that?
No, go ahead.
I think
we'll wind up after your comment.
Absolutely. There are churches that are, let's distinguish between like meat and milk, right? There are churches who they want to give you the introduction to whether it's Christianity or whatever kind of religious experience you're having. They want to bring people in, and they want them to be familiarized with the nomenclature and the rituals and all those things, right? There are churches who, whether it's specific kind of $5 words or they take it really seriously, right? There are those kinds of churches as well. I find that churches who lean into helping people grow and mature with a sobriety are going to be successful. A church that just provides friendships, and friendships are great, and social clubs are great. There are places that do that way better. You can go to a bar in downtown Southern Pines and have a good time with some people, right? And you should be able to have a good time with people at church. But if you go to a church, you need to learn more about salvation. You need to learn more about grace. You need to learn more about Christ and His Word. And so churches that lean into not necessarily having a doctrinal emphasis only, but are really trying to feed their people, to help them grow into mature in their love for God and their love for their neighbor. One of the things that I try to do as a pastor is I try to help people mature in three different ways. I want them to know what God says is true. I want them to believe that. I want them to adore what God says is beautiful. And I want them to do what God says is honorable. And the ways in which you go about doing that are you teach and you preach and you help people understand more about what's in the Holy Scriptures. So,
and in wrapping up the first set, we should have a sign on all churches that said social media not welcome. This is All Things More Kenny. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set. Dorothy, I'm going to have to take advantage of every minute we have since we ran over significantly, but
You can do it.
Such a fluid conversation.
It is.
So we ran a banner ad talking about the Redeemer Church, and we called it New Beginnings. For your family, you have new beginnings. For the Redeemer Church, it's a new beginning.
Yeah.
And what is the message that you want to communicate to people who are maybe like Adrian, who moved and who are looking to find a church and to understand beyond just the feelings?
Yeah.
What is the message that you want to deliver?
Yeah, I would say, excuse me, that of all the things that Redeemer Church, and really any church, but Redeemer Church in particular, I would hope would be known for. Two of the things I've mentioned already, and I hope that this would resonate with Adrian or anybody else who is thinking about joining a religious community, is that Redeemer would be a safe church, that people who have, if they have experienced wounds from other churches for all kinds of reasons, churches are like every other place. There are people who have hard times. That they would come and they would know, hey, listen, this is a spot where I can bring myself and my wounds, I can bring my family, I can bring my story, and it's going to be listened to, it's going to be honored, it's going to be cared for. I want Redeemer to be a very safe church. I do also, and I've mentioned this, I want there to be trustworthiness. I want Redeemer to be a trustworthy church. I hear so many stories of people who are suspicious, not just of churches, but of just kind of institutions. I mean, we all lived through COVID, whatever that means politically. They're very worried about submitting themselves or subjecting themselves to any authority. And so I think churches need to go the extra mile right now in demonstrating that they are trustworthy. I think that's one of actually the really wonderful things about Presbyterianism, is that we're not dominated by one particular person, whether it's a pastor or a cleric or bishop or whatever, who can kind of do whatever they want. We're a congregational church. The congregation makes all the important decisions, but they elect. I had to be elected by the congregation to be their pastor. They have to elect the representatives who do kind of the day-to-day stuff.
Right.
And so there's checks and balances, just like a good government, ideally at least. So we'd be a trustworthy church. We are a confessional church, and all that really means is that we draw from a heritage that's older than like 5 minutes. So many churches, they are kind of making it up as they go, and for a lot of people, that can change when a new pastor comes in.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we're stuck in our old ways, or that doesn't mean that we're doing things that are route, but rather we're giving new expression to an old identity. So I think that, but perhaps more than anything else, I would hope that Redeemer Church would be known as a place that proclaims really that humanity has one problem and one solution. The problem of sin is something that, sin is not dirt that we can wash off our skin. It's in our blood and it's in our bones, and it alienates us from God. And the one solution to that is faith in Christ Jesus. It's resting and trusting that what he has done is good enough to cleanse us of sin. And these are religious ideas and words. But at the heartbeat of it, Redeemer Church is going to be a place that really leans into understanding that very concept. What is sin? What is man? Who is God? And what has he done through Christ? And how does the church carry on that mission? Both, big picture wise, whether it's talking about our theology or coming alongside those who are hurting here in Moore County and Southern Pines and Pinehurst and in the surrounding area. So I would say those four flavors, if our church is known for those things, I think we'll be successful, but not in a numerical way, but in a way that honors God.
A friend of mine who lives here and very thoughtful, very bright, mother of 4 daughters, said that she was getting fed up with the rightness and wrongness that seemed to be coming from different churches about our position, very polarizing. And it's turned her and I know some other people off. And how do you answer that from the Redeemer Church point of view?
Yeah. Well, right and wrong, these are categories that every man or woman operates in. We all have a sense of what's good and what's beautiful and what's wrong and what's terrible. And so how do we go about defining that? We really lean on how God's word gives us instruction about what pleases him, what honors him. And so we talk about that, but we also recognize that oftentimes people have different opinions on that, which is quite helpful when you have God's word right there. So I would hope that she would, if she were to come in the front door of Redeemer, say, you know what, this is a place where I've been burned, or I've been fed up, or I've been frustrated because I've been told I need to vote this way, or I need to behave this way, or I can't associate with this type of theology.
The politics of church are real.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, we're in a overly, I mean, absolutely, but it's no different from every other kind of area of life right now. It's hard to have a non-political conversation with anyone because people are listening for cues for dog whistles, right?
Right. It's the sign of the times. You can't go anywhere without politics invading anything that you do.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to say that church should utterly avoid that space for the sake of being nice. I think the church has much to say to people, to the state, to rulers. And so I like to keep that in reserve, that we will talk about what types of things does God expect of those who are in positions of authority and leadership over people. But I'm more interested, like I said earlier, about helping people grow and mature in their love and knowledge of God and their love and care for their neighbor. I think if you focus on that through the word, through prayer, and through the sacraments, everything tends to sort itself out. We grow and we mature because it's not just, Bill, what's your opinion? Here's my opinion. It's, hey, Bill, you go to church with me. You sit next to me. We're in this together. To look at each other eye to eye and to know that we're working in the community shoulder to shoulder to accomplish something bigger. That's different from what's your idea, what's my idea, lock them in the Thunderdome and let's just see who wins. And I would hope that church could be more like that first than like the latter.
You went through an interview process to get here, where you were interviewed, but in reality, you also were interviewing them.
That's right.
And it was a marriage that you decided to consummate. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what impressed you about the team that interviewed you, and because that also was probably a big factor in you accepting the position.
Oh man, so in becoming a pastor of a church, there's a whole process, and different denominations have different approaches. Again, Presbyterianism, because we entrust the people of the church with making those kinds of decisions, they elect what's called a pulpit committee. So they select people, and those people are voted on by the whole congregation. And that pulpit committee sensitively engages ministry candidates, just to avoid embarrassment. When someone put the job in front of me, a buddy, a fellow pastor, I thought that this job description that they were looking for, the type of pastor they were looking for, was as if I wrote it myself. They want someone who is appropriately ambitious, pushing into the community, not just building four walls and having our little holy huddle, but they want someone who will be tender to the work that has gone in front of me. I'm inheriting a church that was planted 6 years ago,
right.
And there are some people who have birthed this church and loved it like a mother. And so not just a guy who's going to come in and flush everything away, but really honor that.
Right.
And so again, inheriting something, but creating something new, having a vision for how can Redeemer Church be a church that honors the Lord and serves Moore County. All that was very attractive to me. And so the other thing that I really liked about the search committee is that it was filled with people who, let's say they have a military background, and they're very efficient. Yeah. Sometimes these search committees can go on for months. Yeah. They needed their 80-20 solution. They figured out that they wanted to proceed, and they just went straight for it. So it was a real blessing. So I'm excited about coming to the church. The last thing I'd say about Redeemer, we are roughly 100. 12 or under in terms of our makeup. We have so many children, so many young families.
Right.
And for a pastor who has a young family, knowing that we have not just instant friends, but people who are in the same age and stage as me. We have retirees, we have military folks, we have just a cross-section of all of Moore County, but an exciting congregation that really reflects kind of where I'm at my age and stage. it's just a great place to come into pastor.
The Redeemer Church, you hold your services at the Country Club of Whispering Pines.
That's right. We are Lord willing, we're going to be building a building in the next year.
Yeah,
we're looking around.
Want to come back and talk about that? And Adrian, stay with us for the last set. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. Bo Collins is our guest. He is a reverend. He is a new reverend at the Redeemer Church. Their services are being held at the Country Club of Whispering Pines, as mentioned. Bo, I've known Adrian for over 20 years, and I trust her instincts. I respect her judgment, and I've been watching her as you've been speaking. You've been listening, Adrian, to a lot of what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me agreeing as a favorable way. Am I wrong?
I like the energy that he brings to his faith and his
Well,
convictions.
You're kind.
Yeah, I've been on search committees, and it's hard to find someone who is not just scholarly, just academic, or knows how to do the routine, but somebody who actually has a passion, who has a sort of a living relationship with their faith, and that's really important if you're going to help your people to also grow in their faith and bring them to a place where they can find the spark and the excitement in their relationship with God.
Yeah.
And so it's really great to hear that not only are you saying the right things insofar as you're not, I've heard no heresy. I haven't heard anything that would make me think that this is some sort of cult.
Oh, wow. No, not a cult.
No,
Yeah.
not a cult. No, there's a genuineness to what you say, and not only what you say, but how you're saying it.
Right.
It's not just something you know, it's something you believe. It's something that you know to be real.
Wow.
I always tell people if they 110% believe in what they're saying, nobody will ever question their credibility. No one will ever think they're being sold a bill of goods.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about that, because if you're being truthful and you're just being very forthright, people will either get enrolled or they're blind.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you.
Well, I mean, y'all are being, very, very generous. I'm a well-trained monkey. There's nothing, and I'm not trying to be artificially humble. Like I'm someone, I try to read as best as I can. I try to serve as best as I can. I think the best part about the work that I get to do is the story that I get to tell of God saving me, of God taking me from where I was broken and giving me an opportunity to tell people about that. And so I think what you're catching is the joy of that story. The fact that there is a God who sees people not just in the best parts of who they are, but in their brokenness. And he loves them and he pursues them and he calls them to not just worship him, but to know him. And we know him through Christ and through his word. And so I hope that that's part of, or probably all of what you're hearing. And I hope that Redeemer Church, leadership comes and goes, but the gospel stays. And Redeemer Church will be the kind of church that is known for that. It's a place where people, again, safe, trustworthy, all those things, but it's a place where people will come to hear the story of God, pursuing and collecting and gathering and saving his people and sending them on mission. That's the kind of church that if I could pastor that church and if I could throw my oar in the water with that group of people, which I think we have at Redeemer Church, it's a great thing to do.
Mm-hmm. If I had to coin in one word the indelible impression that the Greek Orthodox Church put on me when I was a kid, it was obedience.
Mm.
Yeah.
But today, it sounds like the demographic of your church is younger.
Mm-hmm.
How do you coach the children, the kids, in this culture that we live in that's so fragmented?
Mm-hmm.
The social media is so omnipresent. People get instant feedback about everything, about their feelings, the positives and negatives. How do you communicate that message in this environment? Because you have a lot of competition.
Oh, yes. I think you have to, well, two things. You first, don't talk down to young men and young women. 12, 13, 14-year-olds are very bright and sophisticated. And if you show them where the top shelf is of the world of ideas and the world of religion, they'll climb up to get it. And so we try to give our children through our junior high. We have an incredible junior high and senior high program at Redeemer. We try to give them real words and concepts from our confession. I've talked about being a confessional church that will help them navigate through the world, because you're born with a thirst to know God and to know specifically about him, not just kind of the big superficial things. But the second thing is we have to support and equip parents. I think a lot of churches, they can spool up a lot of activity and say, hey, deposit your kids here for 2 hours a week and we'll take care of that. But parents have kids at the home. And so we need to equip and encourage parents and also not shame parents. Parents are busy. They need support, and they need, whether it's resources or prayer or encouragement, they need to know that their church is behind them. Because, look, I get kids an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a week. If they come to everything that I'm involved with, parents have them at home. So I think making sure parents know we're gonna help them and support them is really important.
5 years from now, you're a full-time Moore County resident.
Yes.
5 years from now, where do you hope to be?
Well, hopefully sitting
church?
Right here again.
Right. You're invited.
Yes. What a wonderful opportunity it would be for us to have a building. So we're in a phase right now where the Lord has collected and shown faithfulness to us over the last 5 or 6 years. We want to celebrate God's faithfulness this year in allowing me to come down and minister and my family being cared for the church. But Lord willing, this time next year, we will have broken ground on a building, and we are interested in finding a location somewhere nearby. So that's our dream. That's our hope. I also hope that we are growing in our ability to love God and care for our neighbors. So we want to come alongside a lot of the people who are doing good work here in Moore County and support them and find the areas where our Venn diagram of mission overlaps with theirs. So I'd say those are two really important kind of top line ideas for us. We want to build a building, and we want to have a place where people can, not just on Sunday, but Monday to Saturday, do community, but then also be a light in the community and care for people.
It would be really great if you could find like a good real estate agent in the area who could help you
if
find
only,
a location.
I wonder,
and a
Bill, do you
place
have anybody
maybe
in
where you
mind?
Let me think about it and get back to you.
That's right.
You know what I was so impressed with before Bo and Katie moved here? We were trying to prep the home where they're living, and it was an older, eclectic home, worthy of shepherding along. And I was told by Katie, "Oh, you don't have to worry. 2 or 3 days before their arrival, some of the parishioners would come over. They put out vases. They did some landscaping. It was." The general feeling I
They're
got
incredible.
was so positive.
Yes.
I said,
Yeah.
wow, it was almost organic.
Yes.
And I pulled up, and I mean, even on the side entrance, there were vases with beautiful floral arrangements. They came in, they wanted to do some cleaning over and above what we did. I mean, so I got this good sense of fellowship.
Oh, and the next day when we drove down, I was pulling a truck. There were 40 people who came at 8:30 in the morning. It was a Thursday too. It was remarkable. They cleared the truck in 30 minutes. It
Mostly
took us,
people you'd never met before.
That's
I'm
exactly
sure.
right, and
Yeah.
they were big, strong-looking guys too. So yeah, I mean, it is a really, really sweet church, and we felt that when we were interviewing with them, that there's something special about this congregation and about this community more broadly, and we're delighted to be able to come and.
Well, when they're willing to
be a
turn
part
out
of it.
for manual labor, you know
You
they're
know
authentic.
something's going. That's right. That's right.
Where can people go to get more information about the church?
RedeemerChurchPCA.org is a good place for us online. We would also just invite you, come and worship with us. Sunday we're at the Country Club of Whispering Pines. 10 a.m. is when our services start. If you're listening to this the last weekend in September, my installation service is happening this Sunday. So at 4 p.m., after you get some supper, come on, or some lunch, take a nap, and then come on over and join us for my installation service, Country Club of Whispering Pines at 4 p.m.
And that's on Sunday?
That'll be Sunday afternoon, that's right. And it'll be a really sweet time. I'm told there's going to be a banana pudding reception afterwards. So even if you don't want to come and see the Presbyterians presbytate, come for some good banana pudding.
Okay.
It'll be a really sweet time.
Adrian, I'm delighted that you were able to come in. It just was serendipitous that this worked out. I mean,
Yeah,
you know how
I've
many
really
shows
enjoyed
we've
this.
done, and sometimes things just kind of come together.
Yeah.
And I use that word serendipity with Katie in her looking at homes and this and that and where her eventual landing spot was. And Bo, I wish you all the best of luck and welcome to Moore County.
Thank you.
And we'll be hearing from his kids pretty soon. These are 4 kids with energy.
Yes, they are savages, but they're sweet.
It was a pleasure to have you
Yes.
both.
Hey, thank you both for letting me be here today.
Everybody have a great week. Thank you.